The night started like any other. I was behind the wheel, cruising down a desolate stretch of highway at 1 a.m. The air was thick with fog, and the headlights struggled to cut through it. I'd taken this route 100 times before, but something about the night felt wrong. It wasn't just the eerie silence or the way the mist seemed to press against the windows. It was the feeling, that creeping, clawing sensation that I wasn't alone. The first thing I noticed was the car. It appeared in my rearview mirror like a ghost. One moment, the road behind me was pitch black. The next, a pair of headlights glared into my eyes. It was tailing me too close for comfort, and I could barely make out the silhouette of the vehicle through the fog. It looked old, something from the 70s maybe, but it had a strange glow to it, like the fog clung to its surface. I eased off the gas, hoping the car would pass, but it didn't. Instead, it inched closer, its headlights growing brighter and brighter, forcing me to squint. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I glanced at the speedometer. 55, 60, 70. The car stayed right behind me, matching my every move. "All right, buddy," I muttered, my voice cracking slightly. "You want to play?" I pressed harder on the gas. My little sedan wasn't built for racing, but it responded. 80, 85, 90. The engine roared in protest, but the car behind me didn't falter. If anything, it got closer. I couldn't make out the driver, just a dark figure slumped behind the wheel. That's when the lights cut out. For a moment, I thought the car had disappeared altogether, swallowed by the fog. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. A split second later, the headlights reappeared, this time directly beside me. The car hadn't passed me. It was gliding. It moved unnaturally, as if it wasn't even touching the ground, its tires floating inches above the pavement. I turned my head, trying to catch a glimpse of the driver, but the windows were pitch black, reflecting nothing but the pale glow of my own headlights. Then the horn blared. It was deafening, a low, guttural sound that rattled my bones and made my chest feel like it was caving in. My heart leapt into my throat as I swerved, trying to put distance between us. But no matter how much I accelerated, the car stayed level with mine, its horn blaring relentlessly. "Get the hell away from me," I shouted, though I doubted whoever, or whatever, was driving could hear me. Suddenly, the car veered toward mine. The impact was subtle at first, a gentle nudge that sent a shiver through my sedan. But it grew more aggressive, the other car slamming into my side again and again. My tires skidded, struggling to grip the slick asphalt. I wrestled with the wheel, my palms slick with sweat. The fog thickened, and the world outside my windshield seemed to dissolve into an endless void. All I could see was the ghostly car beside me, its metallic surface shimmering in the gloom. And then, for the first time, I heard it. Laughter. It was faint at first, like the whisper of wind through cracked windows, but it grew louder, more distinct, a high-pitched maniacal cackle that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It wasn't just one voice. It was dozens, maybe hundreds, overlapping and intertwining in a cacophony of madness. I don't remember deciding to stop. My body just acted, my foot slamming on the brakes as my car screeched to a halt. The ghost car didn't stop. It kept gliding forward, its headlights dimming as it disappeared into the fog. I sat there, panting, my heart hammering against my ribs. The road was silent again, the only sound the faint hum of my engine. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then my phone buzzed. It was sitting on the passenger seat, the screen lighting up with a notification. I grabbed it, my hands trembling. There was no caller ID, just a single message. "Why did you stop?" My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the message. My fingers trembled over the screen, debating whether to respond or chuck the phone out the window. The air inside the car felt heavy, suffocating, as if the fog had seeped in and wrapped itself around my lungs. The phone buzzed again. "Keep driving." I didn't want to obey. Every instinct screamed at me to turn the car around, to head back the way I came and never look back. But something, whether it was fear or the paralyzing weight of curiosity, made me put the car into gear. The road ahead yawned open, an endless black ribbon swallowed by the fog. I pressed the gas, and the car lurched forward. The headlights barely pierced the thick mist, but soon I saw something in the distance. It was faint at first, just a pale glow on the horizon. As I got closer, the glow sharpened into a distinct shape, a sign. It was old, rusted, and riddled with bullet holes, but I could still make out the faded words, "Welcome to Black Hollow." The name sent a shiver down my spine. I'd never heard of Black Hollow before, but the way the letters seemed to bleed down the sign made me want to turn back. I glanced at the phone again, hoping for some guidance, or maybe an excuse to stop, but the screen was blank. As I drove into the town, it became clear that something was deeply wrong. The streets were empty, the buildings abandoned. Windows gaped like hollow eyes, and the streetlights flickered erratically. The fog wrapped around everything, muffling sound and light, until the world felt like a dream, one I couldn't wake up from. Then I saw them. They stood in the middle of the road, a line of figures shrouded in shadows. They didn't move, didn't flinch as my car approached. I slowed to a crawl, my headlights sweeping over their faces, or rather, where their faces should have been. There was nothing, just smooth, featureless skin stretched taut over their skulls. They were all dressed differently, business suits, overalls, tattered dresses, but every single one of them was missing a face. I stopped the car, too terrified to move. The figures stood there, silent and unmoving, blocking the road like a macabre barricade. My hand hovered over the gear shift, ready to throw the car into reverse, when the laughter started again. This time, it was louder, closer. It echoed all around me, bouncing off the empty buildings and filling the car like a chorus of insanity. The figures began to move, their heads tilting in unison as if they were listening to something I couldn't hear. Then, one by one, they turned and started walking toward me. "Go, go, go, go," I whispered to myself, slamming the car into reverse. The tires squealed as I backed away, but the figures didn't stop. They kept advancing, their movements jerky and unnatural, like puppets on invisible strings. The phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, my heart pounding. The message was simple, but it made my stomach drop. Don't run. Against every ounce of logic and survival instinct, I hit the brakes. The car skidded to a stop, the figures now only a few feet away. They surrounded the vehicle, their faceless heads peering into the windows as if they could see me, despite their lack of eyes. The laughter stopped. Silence fell over the town, like a heavy blanket. My breath fogged up the glass as I sat there, frozen, waiting for whatever was going to happen next. Then, the nearest figure raised a hand and pointed towards something in the distance. I followed its gesture and saw the car. The same ghostly vehicle that had chased me earlier was parked at the end of the street, its headlights glowing faintly through the fog. The driver's side door opened, and a figure stepped out. Unlike the faceless ones, this figure had a face. My face. It walked toward me slowly, deliberately, a crooked smile plastered across its lips. The faceless figures parted for it, like shadows fleeing the light. When it reached my car, it leaned down and peered through the driver's side window. its expression twisting into something that looked almost apologetic. Then it spoke. "You weren't supposed to stop." Before I could react, it reached through the window, no, through the glass itself, and grabbed the steering wheel. Its grip was cold, impossibly strong, and I was powerless as it turned the wheel sharply to the right. The car jerked forward, the tires screeching as it veered off the road and into the mist. I screamed, yanking at the wheel, but it was no use. The fog swallowed the car whole, and the road disappeared beneath me. For a moment, there was nothing but white, a blank void stretching in every direction. Then, slowly, shapes began to emerge. Trees, twisted and gnarled, their branches clawing at the sky. A cabin loomed ahead, its windows glowing faintly. The car stopped on its own, the engine sputtering and dying. I sat there, trembling, staring at the cabin. The phone buzzed one last time. The message was waiting for me when I finally gathered the courage to look. "You're home." The cabin door creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness. A single word echoed in my mind, spoken in my own voice. "Come."